Okay, here we are on Macaw. We're going to create a header and a 2-column structured page, which will have a breakpoint and go down to a 1-column structure, and we will rearrange the header elements on that breakpoint. So we've opened Macaw. We're going to go for the default 12-column grid at the 80%, and first thing we need to do is save the Macaw project. So I go File and Save As. Now I've created a site folder to keep all my elements in here, and I'm going to just call this project 2, and I'm going to save it in here where I have the images I'm going to use for my project in a separate folder. So I click save, and you can see up there it's displaying the name project 2 with the Macaw file extension. First thing I'll do is bring in my images. So I go to the library, I click on import, I go to the images folder, and I just shift click all these images which have been optimized and scaled appropriately for my project, and they're in there in the library. They're all listed. Now I will need to create a background image for my header, so I will first create a container or an element. So I just drag out my element on the top where my header is going to go. I check in the inspector and the dimensions that it is 100%. If it isn't, you can type in 100%, press enter. Up at the top we have the div element, and if we go to the outline, it warns us about it's a generic semantic and it's important to name it something more meaningful. And we'll go for header dot header. That will give a tag name of header and a class name of header. Now we've put that in. Now what we will do is we will now bring in our background image. So first, if I go up here, I go image, I then choose from library, I click on the banner, and I click select. Now you'll see it appear up here. So it appears up in the header we've created, and what we can do is reposition it. You can move it around to reposition it appropriately however you want it to be. I will just go for top center there. The next thing I need to do is I need to change the size to cover, and that will just keep it the full size of the image. I need to turn off repeat because it's a background image. The repeat needs to be turned off. Once all that's done, I just click OK. Now I just need to resize this element here. So I click in the center bottom and I drag out. Now what I'm doing is just feeling the bite for when it starts to enlarge, which is there, and then I just go back a bit. Okay, so I've got that. Now the next thing I'll do is I need to have some titles on there and some a field, a form field, and a button to submit. Before I do that, I'll just test to see how that works, and this is the header is working out there, so that's fine. Right, so first I'll go to the text tool, and I'm going to put it underneath, and then I'll drag it up and place it in position. So I drag out my first box, I put it on there, then I'm just going to type in hello world for want of a better words. And once I've done that, I need to go up to the top and click done, otherwise it won't let you move on. I will make my text a bit bigger. I'll take it up, I'll make it 48. Now once I've done that, I will need to make sure, if I look up here in the dimensions, it's got 74 for minimum height, so it won't shrink it down any more than that. If I just put 0, it'll bring that box in. And also it says %. Now I want this to stay static. If I drag this in, it'll do something like that, and I just want it to stay on one line. Now if I make sure I've got it selected, change the width to pixels, when I drag it in now it'll stay static. Now I will drag the box in a little bit more, the div for it. Now in the outline I've got it here and it just says p.text. I will name it h1.h1. Okay. and I'll just position it underneath the header there. Now the next thing I'll do is put a subheading, so another text box, and I'll drag out the box, and I'm going to put in some body text. Now there's a body text function, so all you type in capitals is law room. Now I want to have something like 8 words, so I put 8, the number, and W for 8 words. Then I press tab and it'll put some body text in there. Now once that's done, I need to click done up at the top, and you'll see it says p.text. I'll drag it down below my h1 and I'll call it h2.h2. Okay, that will give a tag of h2 and a class of h2. Now I will go to the inspector. Once I'm in the inspector, I'll make my text a bit bigger, so I'll make it something like 0.22, and then I'll just drag my box out so it accommodates that on a whole line. Now next I will do is get a form field, so I click on the form tool. You can keep your finger on it and it has lots of other form elements. I'm just going to go for the first one. I'll click and drag out a field, and once I've done that I'll type in email, and that can just be a prompt for someone to fill it in. I'll just make it a little bit bigger, and also I'll change the color again over in the inspector, and I'll just take it down so it's sort of a lighter grey on there, and click OK. Now I need to go to the outline, and here it is, input. I drag it down underneath H2, and after the input I'm going to put dot email, and that again will help identify what that element is. Then I need to put a button on here, so if I go up and get the button tool, click on here, and then I can drag out a button and place it on here. Right, once I've got that, I'll put submit, and again I need to click done, and then in the outline you can see button, and if I can just drag that, I'll drag it after where it's got the email. And all I need to do is after the button I need to put dot submit. Okay, so that's all laid out well there in order, and I'll just need to, in the inspector, change the background of the button. I'll move this out of the way. I'll make it sort of a bluey color on here. Okay. Now once you're happy with the color, I can keep that. Maybe I need it again, so I can click on this little button here with the plus sign for swatches, and that will keep that color, so if I want to use it again. Right, and all I do is go up here for the text color, and I'm going to change that to white. If I want to get it, it gives you variants of it, and I click on the far left, and again it will make the white, and then I'll just click here and add that to my swatch. So I've changed those elements around. Now I need to make sure everything's all lined up, so I will change the view. I click anywhere on my canvas, and that will give me the view mode up at the top, and I go for outline. Now in the outline, it's just the outline view, so you can actually nudge these around using the arrow keys and get them to the positions you want them to be, so we can check, are they okay with those. I'll take these down to say something like 12, and I'll move this down here. Right, so that'll give me a chance of doing that. Now I can go back by just clicking anywhere on the page, take it back. Now I can go to wireframe, which will just put make everything into black and white, or I can go back to normal. Right, so I've gone back there, and I've got all those elements, and they're all laid up, and I've got to put them on the top here. Now if I go to the outline view, and I just shift click each of those elements, so the header 1, header 2, and also the form fields and button. Now I just click in it and I can drag it up and I'll place it on here in the header. Okay, with them all selected, the H1 to the button, I can just click here and I can drag it up until the header has a blue outline around it, and I can let go. And what that will do now will be to nest those elements inside the header. Now you'll see the text is black, so it's not standing out well, so I'll just click off that and shift click just H1 and H2. Go to the inspector, in typography, click here. I've already selected white in my swatches to make it easy, and I click OK. Now I've made that, so that's all set up. Now if I drag it in, you will see the text is the subtext that's fine, it's coming in, and the hello world is fine, it's saying static, but the form field is sort of squeezing in a little bit, and also they don't seem to be the right sort of sizes here, so I'll just check those. First up, I'll click on the outline view, go to the form email, and what I need to do with the inspector is to make sure I change that to pixels, and then I need to go and get the direct select tool over here, and that will click on that object, or you can select it by clicking on it in the outline. If you have the ordinary select tool, select the whole box. Now here I need to make sure that this too has a width of pixels. Now the height is 42. If I click now with the direct select tool on the form for the email and check that that's the right size as well, so we've got those on there. Now when we drag in now, they will do this, so we'll go in, and when it gets a certain size along here, you'll see where it breaks, comes down, right, so that's 600. Goes a bit further, it will sort of pop. So 600 is probably the good place to put the break. It'll spring back out. So that's sorted, our header's sorted, and we can close that up. Okay, once the header is done, we need to move on to creating the body of the page, which will consist of two column structure, which will break down to a one column structure on a breakpoint for something like a small device like a phone. Now what I found when I've used some of the calculations when laying out the grid or snapping to the grid or the column structure in Macaw is sometimes it doesn't correspond to something if you calculated it with a calculator. Sometimes it's slightly out. So I will see how this works. I'll show you some information that I've worked out. Now what I have here is as a default it has 80%, and that means the 12 column structure right across here is 80%. So my header is going 100% across the browser window, but 12 columns, and I've got 2 as the gap. So the 2 I think relates to just the 2 portions here that we have. We have a line in between them, so that's got 2. Sometimes I think with Adobe Edge Reflow it gives more conclusive ideas of what the columns are and the sizes and how it snaps to the grid, and when you do things it feels a little bit easier to lay out the column structures by snapping to the grids. Sometimes in Macaw you sometimes have to sort of almost calculate it and override it. So we'll have a little look at how that I've worked this out. So what I've done in Macaw is I've come along, okay, I've set up the 80 page width, I've got the 12 columns, yeah, it's at the 2 guide, and that's at the default. Now what I did was I just dragged out a box over one of the columns, and that came to 5.2. There's 12 5.2s. Then also I've got 11 gutters, so I need to find out what those gutters are. So I found out that one column is 5.2%. So each column is 5.2%, then 5.2% times the 12 columns comes to 62.4. Now 80% width minus 62.4 equals 17.4 17.6% for the gutters, so that's what it leaves. So when I divide the 17.6% by the 11 gutter spaces, I have 1.6%. So that's what the gutter is, 1.6%. Now I will be doing this 2-column structure here. So 2-column structure on a 12-column grid, which is set at 80% of the column, the page width, right? So one of those images will take up 5 gutters at 1.6%, and now we have the column structures, so the 6 columns at 5.2%. So each column is 5.2%. So 6 columns times 5.2% equals 31.2%. Then we have 5 gutters times 1.6% equals 8%. So this means that 31.2% for the 6 columns plus the 8% for the 5 gutters comes to 39.2%. Right, so if you bear that in mind, 39.2% should be our width. Okay, so back in Macaw, we brought in some images and we're going to start to lay them up. I'm going to go for the image block 1. I'll just drag it over here, click on that, and it needs to take up 6 columns, right? So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the other one will be 6 columns. Go to the inspector and you'll see here it's represented at 471 pixels. Now if we change that to percent, it has 39.25. Now if you remember, R1 is 39.2. So if I just bring that in and maybe snap it back there and see what happens and click on it, it's still got just slightly over, although it looks as though it should have snapped to it. So on those calculations, that's what it should be representing. Okay, so I'll move on and do my second image. I bring that in, place it here, go from one of the corners and scale it. I don't have to hold Shift key. I'll put that there. I go to the inspector and I change it to percent. Right, now I click here and it shows me what it is. It's 1.58, which is not 1.6, and then it's got 39.17, and this one is 39.25. So they seem to be a bit out. The tops are okay, where it's got the margins 28. We'll leave it on that, but they don't seem to be corresponding with those calculations. They should be 39.2. So I can shift click both of them and I can change that. So I can come up here and make sure it's on percent, and I can type in 39.2, hit enter or return. Now each of those, if we click on individually at those sizes, now you'll see up here again, all I need to do is change this margin, which is on the right image, and if we come up to the top, it just has 1.58. Now if I type in 1.6, hit enter or return, that will set those to these sizes we've done, and I just checked those. So you might find you need to calculate these sizes, and that's important. So bear in mind, image on the right has a 1.6%, which we've worked out. One on the left is currently at 10%, which is just the margin width, and also we made sure these are both 27 above, 28 above. I can shift click both of them, and you can maybe take it up a bit more. So what I could do is maybe make it something like 20, and that will move them up. Okay, so we got both of those images on there. We go to the outline, you'll see it's placed them above the header, and we probably need to move these around, so we'll see how that works. That's another thing to do with Macaw. It lays them on top of each other, so it might mean the hierarchy is back to front. Again, Adobe Edge Reflow tends to keep that hierarchy without moving the images around or elements on the page. Now I've got those in there, and the next thing I'll do is I'll go and get the text tool. I'll drag out a text box and go all the way across, and I'm going to type in header. Now once I've typed in header, I need to click on done, and once I've done that, I will take the pixel size up and I'll make it 36. I'll center it. Now what I'll do is up here where it's got this is the minimum height and that will constrain it there, I'll just zero the minimum height, and instead I'll put some borders on there. Oh, padding, sorry. I'll put padding. I shift click the top and bottom where it's got the padding, and I'll come along and I'll put in 4, and that will give me a 4 pixel padding on the top and bottom. Now once I've done that, I will get the text tool again. I'll drag out a text box underneath that, and what I'll do is type in a prompt to create some body text. In Macaw, I type in lorem, which is in uppercase, so L-O-R-E-M, and then I want to have 16 words, so type in 16, W in lowercase, and press tab, and that will put in 16 words, body text. Go up to the top, click done. Now I need to center it. I'll just make it a little bit bigger. I'll make it 20, and I've got it centered. Right, so I've done that, and that's 12 from the header, and the header is 14 from the top of the to the bottom of the image. Right, now they're set up. Now if I go over to the outline, now you'll see the header came in, and that's got to be changed. So I'm going to change it in here and go h3.h3. Press tab on there. Now the paragraph text, you'll see again it hasn't got semantic, or it's classified as a generic semantic markup. I will change that, and I'm going to call that article dot article 1. Okay, so we've got that, so it names it something more meaningful. Now what I can do is I can go and click anywhere on the page, and I can go up to the view mode, and I can say outline. Now once I've got the outline, this gives me the outline of where things are, so make sure nothing's overlapping or everything's fine. I can use that in conjunction with the inspector and see the sizes that I've got. So I've got those placed on there, and come up, and maybe I need to make sure that the 32.9 the image is, the header is also 32.9, and then the paragraph text is 32.9. Also, it's important that these are on auto. So if we go along, they're on auto, both the header and the paragraph text. If I click on my image, you'll see again I got to make sure it's on percent and not on pixel dimensions, and when I drag it in, it should all just shrink up and down. Right? Okay, so I've got that. So what I can do is just duplicate these. So I can shift click both the header and the block of text. I can hold the Alt key, then click, and then drag, and then I can let go of the Alt once I see it's copied it, and drag it over and drop it in position. You should have the smart guide. You can click away from it. I click on the header on the left, and it's 11 from the top, and I click here, yeah, it's 11 from the top. Click on the body text, that's 15 from there, and that's 15. So I can leave them there, or you can adjust them to make them the same. Okay, I'll just go to the outline. You'll see I've copied the bottom one, which I've called article, and it's coming up as article twice. So make sure I've got that selected, and all I do is just click at the end, and I'll just amend that and call that article 2. Right, okay. So once that's laid up, I need to put in some other images, and then I'm going to duplicate these bits of text and rename them. Go to the library. I'm still in the outline mode, which is really good for seeing the gaps and the boxes, so I'll stay in there. I'll click on block 3. I'll put it underneath here. Again, go from one of the corners. Now I need to make sure in the inspector I need to be changing this from pixels to percent. If you remember, it's 39% 39.2. Now sometimes you have to type in the whole number, overwrite it. Sometimes you try and amend it and just put 0.2, it'll probably just give you 2%. So sometimes that can be an issue, so make sure you do that. Now move that around, and sometimes you find even when you move it around, you'll find before you move it around it'll probably be over there, but once you move it around and put it back on the guide, you'll feel it'll fit more snugly. Okay, so we got that. I'll leave that at 25 pixels from the top. Once I've got that, I'll bring in another image. So back to the library, and I'll bring in my image 4 and just place it down there. Again, go from one of the corners, scale it, and get it to the height I want. Take it down so it's 25. I go to the inspector, I change it to %, and again it's come up a little bit more, so I just overtype 39.2, press enter. Right, and then that's done. Make sure it's the same from the top. Now I need to copy the header and the paragraph text of both those. So I shift click them all four lots, and then I hold the Alt key and I then click the mouse and I drag down, let go once I've seen it's copied it, and drag it down and place it underneath here. Now I need to click away from it, and I need to make sure that the header here, it's only on 21. What's it up here? It's on 11. So I need to really bring that up a bit. So I'll just nudge that up so it matches the top. It needs to come up to 11. So I'll bring it up and make it 11. And then the same thing with the other header. Bring that up and make it 11. And then this should be 15 pixels. So again, I sort of nudge that up until it gets to 15, and nudge this one up until it gets to 15. Okay. Now I need to check that the header is on 32.2. Both of them are. I click on all of them and I'm checking up here they are and placed on all those. Okay, so I'll just bring those in as they are and take them out again. Now what I need to do is make sure they're named uniquely. So I click on the header here and come up and go into the outline view, and they've got H3, so that's fine. Then I've got the article, this article here. I've got article 2, and this has got article there, so this should be article 3. So I'll just name that differently and put in 3, and then the final article bottom right, it's up here. I'll name that article just at the end of it, article 4. So it's article 4, so I can tell the difference. Okay, so once that's all laid out, I need to go back to the inspector, and I need to make sure that all these blocks are on auto up here. They've got all auto, which is fine. Now you'll see also they come up and say the minimum height. Now a lot of them have minimum heights on them, certainly these two. So if I shift click both of them, I can just zero the minimum height for that. And I come over here and I shift click both of those paragraph text there. It's got the blocks, and I zero those as well. All right. So what that's done is just zeroed it. All right. So when I bring it in and bring it out, it all looks as though it's okay. And you've always got to make sure the image is also in percentages. So that's all really worked out there. So I've laid all those objects out, and they're all looking, pretty good on those sizes. Now what I can do is make a box around each of them. So with all those set out and they're all accurately, I can go up to the top here, and this top image, I shift click each of that. So I click the image, the header, and the paragraph text. Once I've done that, I go up and I say element and I say type fit, and that'll put a container around them. If I go to the outline view, you'll see here it adds the container there. So if I close that up, it's got all those objects in there. Now what I need to do with the container is give it another name. That's better than just div.container. So I need to come along and I'm going to call it section dot top left. Whoops, map the outer top left. Alright, so that gives me that section. Now I'll move on to the next one. I'll shift click the image, the header and the paragraph text. It selects them all in there. I go up to the elements and I say type group. It's named it here. And on this one I'm going to call it section dot top right. Hit enter. Okay, and I can close that up. Now what I will do is go down to here, the bottom left, shift click the image, shift click the header, shift click the paragraph text, go up and go type group. Right, now once I've got the type group, I come over here, I can name it, and I go section dot bottom left. Okay, so I've got that there, and then finally I'll shift click the bottom right component, so shift click on the image, the header and the paragraph to select them, go up to the elements and say type group, and up here you'll see it's got selected, and I'm going to go section dot bottom bottom right. Okay, and close that up. Right, so I've got all those placed in here, and I can close them all up, and it's got them all done. Now I can bring these in and see what's going on here. Now you'll see there's little bits of gaps underneath. So see that gap underneath the paragraphs. So what I'll do is click on the first section, which the section here, which is the bottom right, and it goes to the inspector and see what's going on. You'll see it's set at pixel dimensions. If I change that and go to auto, and now I drag it in, you'll see that bottom right one, there's no gap at the bottom pushing it away, so it's autoing as we drag it in now. So if we go back, okay, I will just go and do that to the rest of them. So go to the outline view, I've done the bottom right, I'll do the bottom left, I'll go up here, I go auto, and then I go back to the outline, bottom top right, inspector, take that to auto, go back here and finally do the section top left, go to inspector and go to auto. Right, now if I bring that in now, you'll see there isn't any sort of space at the bottom. They're sort of staying contained in those boxes as we drag them in and out, otherwise it's pushing them out of the way. Okay, so all is well with those objects. Now I'll go back, click anywhere on the page and body and go to normal, and there we've got our page. So we drag that in, drag it out, it's doing that. Right, now finally I will place just a footer at the bottom, but before I do that I'll rearrange my outline views. Now we've got the header up here, so what I'll do is drag the header so it's up at the top and place it there. Now you'll see it's knocked out this top left column, but we will just carry on, rearrange those and then set them out a little bit better afterwards. So the header's at the top, and that's fine, it's all the way at the top. Then we need to do the top left first, so I'll go to the top left and put that there. Then I'll do the top right, and then we'll go bottom left and then the bottom right. So you'll see this one's knocked out, which is the top left up here. If I open that up and I see the image, which is sort of pushed away from there, it's, when I look at there, it's gone across the top. So if I come along here and zero the left margin, and it brings it over, and then finally it's got 20 pixels, it's pushed it down. So if I zero that, it should bring that up. So the image is fine inside its container. Then where we've got the header, header 3, again the same things happen there. So I can zero that, and then also that is just 11 from the top, so that's fine. And then finally I just do the article, and again I need to come along and 0 that and bring it across. Right, so that should all sort of match up now, and bring it in and bring it out. We've got that the same. All it's done is sometimes things are slightly out and you need to recover from it. That's the issue of using these type of prototype programs. You're moving them around and it's trying to auto float them and push other objects away with margins. So you've got to watch out for that. Right, so that's all quite neat and tidy. I've got the header, I've got the top left, top right, bottom left, and all the way through. And that's to do with just how Macaw is laying things. The first object is at the bottom of the stack in the DOM, and the other ones are there. Rearranging it can create issues, which is a bit different than reflow, which does it the other way around. Now the last thing I'll do is I'll just put a footer across the bottom, so I'll get an element tool and I come along, and then you'd probably lay out some other elements on there. I put it on there, go to the inspector, I go background color, I'll give it something like a bit of a gray color, click OK to that. What I need to make sure is it's got so many pixels. I can leave it on that, make sure it is 100%, slightly over, so we got that coming on. When we drag it in, drag it out, it's got it there. And if we click on here, you'll see it's the percentage from those boxes there. Okay, so that's done. And now we need to preview it. So if we go to File, Publish, comes up. And if we drag out the preview window, you'll see it's here. Drag that in once it's down the bottom. And it seems to be responding fine, right? So we go further down, it'll probably break at some point. We need to sort that out. Right, now that's done, we need to go back here and we need to put a breakpoint in. Now I've noticed that with my footer down the bottom here, that's selected, I haven't named that. It's just got div.element, so I'll quickly name that. I'll say footer dot footer, and that will give a take it back, dot footer. Now what that will do is give us a tag name of footer and a class name as footer. We go here and you'll see that's right at the top. I'll drag it right down to the bottom, and we've got it here. I'll just check I've got a positive margin yet. It's only 58 from there. I'll bring it in to see if anything's happening, and I'll make sure I check. Sometimes it pushes out other objects out the way. Hasn't done that, so that's pretty good. Everything's fine. Now I need to put a breakpoint in. I go to the inspector, click anywhere on the page. It's got 1200 pixels here. I'm going to do one for 600. I click the plus sign, I type in 600, and I press enter. Now it pushes that there. Now what we need to do is rearrange the head, and also we need to rearrange the page structure here as well, where it's got the columns. Now what I'll do is I'll come along here and shift click these sections. Now I've got the sections there. Got to make sure the sections are selected, and we need to change the percentage. So we go to the inspector. Okay, with those elements selected on our page, we're now going to change the percentage. So I know they're selected. I go to the inspector. I need to change them. I don't want them to just be 80%. So that takes up the 12 columns, which has shrunk down. So I just type in 80 in the dimensions of the width, and you'll see because the margins weren't all the same, so the top one seems to be fine, second one isn't, third one is, and the last one isn't. So we need to realign those. So with them all selected, what I want them to be is all 10%, which this one is. So all 10% from the side of the browser window. So I'll type in 10% and press enter, and that will just push them all over. So we push them all over and they're all lined up there. Okay, so once that's done, I'll just save that. Now the last thing we need to do is you look at the header up here. I want all my text to be centered. I want the button to be underneath the field, and I want them to expand. So I go to the outline. I've got the header open up at the top. I'll go for H1 to begin with, and all I'll do is just drag that out and place it like that. Then I'll go for H2 and again drag that out to those column guides all the way over and place them like that. And then finally I'll go to the submit button and I'll nudge it down with my arrow keys to get out of the way. I can press control and that will do it in 10 pixel gaps and take it down there. Then I can just drag that out, place it there. You could take the height and make it bigger. It's up to you. And then I get the email input again. I'm dragging it out to the edge of the column structure. I'm doing that. Just go back to the button and rearrange that and place that there. And then I've the email, just make sure it is fitted on there. And that's it. Last thing I'll do is go to the H2, shift click the H1, go to the inspector and align those to the center. Okay, so when I go to this column structure, that's what I've got. I'll just press Command Alt and 0 or Control Alt and 0 to center the canvas or the page. There we go, that's our page structure. Then when we go to here for the breakpoint, again, that's a structure there for the phone size. So we just made a media query, large to small. I'll just save that. I will go to publish up at the top. That will preview it in Macaw's preview. Take it in, that's when it hits the breakpoint. Take it out again. We do that, check everything's fine. Seems reasonably fine. You can tweak it. As we've seen before, we can click on the up at the top to see the markup for that, and you can cut and paste that and use it or save it. Then we can come and it's got the style sheets for all those. Naming sometimes can be an issue, and sort of ordering it can be an issue, and also putting in redundant information as well. So we've got that. If there was JavaScript to be here, then we can click here. It presents our project folder. This is what it's outputting as. All the images are there. All the style sheets are in here. And if we had any JavaScript to be here. Okay, so all that's set out. So we got that. If we want to preview it in the browser, we click on the last icon, preview it in Chrome here, and we can drag that in, check it's all working, and take it back out again and do that. All right. Now I'll close down the preview. I'm totally happy with that. Again, you save it or you come up to publishing it. But those files you would use that are saved in the project folder, which we just looked at, are the ones you would use to maybe clean up, open it up into an image editor and take it further. But ideally, it's a really good prototyping tool to help you work out designs for responsive design. Okay, we're going to look at how you preview on a device or a phone in another screencast, but that's basically it really with Macaw.